With that, we move on to the trialogue titled Redefining Digital Strategies to Deliver Unmatched Customer Experience. And as members of this very esteemed trialogue, it's my privilege to welcome Guru Bhatt, Vice President Customer Success Platform at PayPal, and Kayzad Hiramanek, President Operations and Customer Experience at Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. This session will be moderated by Rakesh, Pozhath, partner at Bain and Company. Rakesh, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Guru. Hi, Kayzad. Nice to meet you. Well, welcome everyone to the session. Let me just provide a quick context and overview of the session and the reason we are meeting here, and then we'll get on with the questions. We've got 30 minutes. Quick context, as everyone knows, customer expectations are fast changing. Where, when, what, and how I want my needs served is fast changing with smartphone and the internet becoming ubiquitous. And customers want simple, intuitive, seamless digital experiences and have come to expect this in BFSI as well, especially on the retail side, but more so now with corporate customers as well. And from the supply side, we see fintech disruption changing the rules of the game, redefining customer experience across payments, lending, insurance, and investments. And now we also have major interventions made by the regulator and the government to digitize and democratize financial services with account aggregation, the open credit enablement network, and so on and so forth. This trifecta of drivers has been further given an impetus by COVID. And the implication for both incumbents as well as insurgents in financial services is therefore accelerated investment in digitization of customer journeys, advanced analytics and AI/ML for customer acquisition, engagement, and retention. And of course, to enable all this, build an open modular tech stack that is flexible and adaptable. And we see this loud and clear in increasingly the projects we do at Bain and Company as well, in BFSI for our clients, which is now heavily skewed towards customer experience transformation, digital transformation, new digital business models, operating model redesign, setting up centers of excellence for advanced analytics, enterprise tech strategy, and so on and so forth. In this context, we're here to discuss how organizations should think about redefining their digital strategies to deliver superior customer experience going forward, and learn from our esteemed panelists, two industry veterans who have been in this space for over 2 decades, Guru Bhatt and Kayzad Hiramanek. Welcome both. Maybe let me just start by asking you to give your opening thoughts on how customer expectations and behavior has changed in your respective industries, payments and insurance, two of the most highly disrupted industries or sectors within BFSI. And specifically in the last 18 months or so, what are the big strategic priorities, therefore, for your respective organizations on digital, data, and enterprise technology to adapt to this change? And maybe let me start with Kayzad to give his opening thoughts, and I'll come to you, Guru, after that.
Thank you, Rakesh, and it's a pleasure being part of this trialogue. And you know, this session couldn't have been more timely because while we faced 18 months of unprecedented lockdowns and opening ups, it looks like we're going in for one more, post the festive season. So you know what you can clearly see, and a lot of people you would stick on to the old age, the cliched old age adage of change is the only constant. I would like to change that a bit to say that uncertainty is the only constant. And to be honest with you, in uncertain times, typically people seek safe harbor, and therefore insurance is very much on top of their minds when it comes to any kind of financial investment or planning as they are going forward. Because most Indians have been affected, personally or at a family level. I myself am a COVID long hauler, so to that extent, I think the needs of customers themselves have changed, and their behaviors have changed, quite incredibly. So if you were to ask me, there were insurance being heavily intermediated as a product. Typically, you had three, very very clear physical touch points that a customer needed to go through. Of course, the intermediary reaching out to the customer. So whether it was an agent or a relationship manager of a bank or a broker, etc., reaching out to the customer to source his, understand his needs and source his policy. The second was obviously the form filling and the signatures that were required. And thirdly, was the payments. And typically Indian payment behavior was, still rooted in cash and check before this lockdown has happened. So, that keeping that in mind, what we realized is that the customer today wants, three very distinct services from their providers. The first is personalization, where the customers want you to know them, okay, and they want you to, know a lot about them, and that is possible, and I'll talk about that, a little later. The second is, contextualization. So customers don't want to be subject to machine gun fire. They want to ensure that you are keeping the content contextual to them when you are having a conversation or reaching out to them at any point in their life cycle. And finally is virtualize. So virtualization means that today I am stuck in my house, but I still want to be completely free to operate as part of my daily routine. So personalization, contextualization, and virtualization is the way forward for the customer. And there are some very, very clear signs that we see. The first is that people spending time on a screen till about 18 months ago was about 250 minutes. That's gone up to 400 minutes in the last 18 months. So obviously customers have got used to dealing with a screen and dealing with other people on a screen. The second very clear sign is the UPI payment. So last month, as of August 31st, 3.54 billion transaction happened in that month on UPI in terms of payments. So that should tell you that the customer has evolved to using the digital medium as his lifeblood now. So let me give you three very simple examples of our own life cycle. So typically, because the intermediary was not able to reach the customer anymore face to face, and obviously customers are smart, they don't want to meet an unknown salesperson, and bring them into their homes to have a conversation or their offices. So what we did was we introduced a screen sharing, platform called Smart Assist, which actually allowed our intermediaries to talk to our customers over a screen, just like we are. Taking them through the entire product details, being able to exchange product, paraphernalia, show them videos in terms of explaining, the entire product benefits, etc. Then, one very important thing in an insurance policy onboarding is the medical, right? And typically customers don't want to go to diagnostic centers today where people are lining up to take COVID tests. And, the same technician is addressing everybody. So, what we've done is very simply, integrated the entire screen sharing platform with an on-screen doctor. And today, telemedicine, look at the number of advertisements on TV today in terms of telemedicine. Okay, so that itself should tell you that telemedicine is finally a frontier that has been breached. And I am a classic example of that. I did my entire COVID treatment on telemedicine. And I'm perfectly all right now. So that should tell you that, it works. That being said, the other part in terms of life cycle servicing, the customer shows three very clear how he wants to be serviced. The first is voice. So, while people talk about the fact that, everything can be done on a screen, I don't think the Indian customer, especially outside the metros and semi-metros, still wants to operate too much on a screen and be left hanging, because typically most of that content is still in English. So, they still want to speak to a person who can understand the language and talk to them. This is very interesting because, all our call centers today are all sitting at home. All our agents are sitting at home and taking calls. So, that's another huge change in terms of corporate behavior, where today hybrid working is the order of the day, and gone are the days of those fancy offices and call centers. The second is video. So obviously customers do want to see the person they're talking to and, know that they're talking to an authorized representative of the company. So we have a beautiful, video sharing platform, even on our WhatsApp platform. So we are one of the first to have a proprietary video platform on WhatsApp. Okay, so voice, video, and the third is vernacular. Many of us tend to forget that all of us are English educated and, we believe we are from Harvard, Stanford, or Chinchwad. But actually the customer outside the cities is not like that. He still wants to speak in his mother tongue. And therefore, addressing the customer in the vernacular, whether it is through your written communication, whether it is through your call centers, whether it is on your bot platforms, whether it's WhatsApp, etc. The vernacular is extremely important, and that is where most companies today are working towards. Finally, of course, it's the payments ecosystem. And what can I say about the Indian payments ecosystem? It's the best in class in the world, if you ask me, especially with the UPI stack. And Guru will be more than happy to attest to that, being one of those who's on the bandwagon there. But the fact is that the UPI ecosystem, in terms of the merger of banking, cards, and wallets, has been a game changer for everybody. And it is not just now restricted to P2P or P2M payments anymore. It's a lot more than that. I mean, these platforms are now selling insurance. They are giving you loans. So there is so much more that's already happening. And believe you me, it's good times for the Indian customer, because he's spoiled for choice, he's spoiled for options, and he can now truly demand the best and get it as well in this country.
Thanks, Kayzad. That's very well summed up in terms of the three key themes that we should be looking at: personalization, contextualization, and virtualization. Maybe to expound on that a little bit more, specifically from a digital payments perspective, let me turn it over to you, Guru. And maybe you can talk a little bit about PayPal's own initiatives in this space as well.
Sure. Thank you, Rakesh, and thanks, Kayzad. Rakesh, I noticed that you went first with the better dressed gentleman in the room. So, definitely, as a digital native in that sense, right? PayPal established in 1998, as my T-shirt says. We're kind of born digital in that sense, and it has been a very interesting experience the last couple of years, 18 months or so, where what might have originally taken 3 to 5 years in terms of digital adoption, we have seen this happening in an extremely accelerated pace, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. So if I were to see, a few numbers to just give you the sense of scale, right? We exited last quarter with 403 million customers on our platform. And in the trailing 12 months, we've processed over $1 trillion in total payment volume. If you go back to the time period between March 2020 to roughly around July or August, we were actually witnessing a surge in terms of adoption of digital payments, unlike any other point in time in our history as a company. Every single day, we were seeing 250,000 new customers joining us every single day. And that is, I'm talking about a sustained period of about 4 or 5 months, where every 4 days you've got million new customers to your, added onto your platform. And many of these are small and medium-sized businesses around the world, because adopting digital payments was an existential need for them. It was not just that it was something that was nice to have. It wasn't a cool thing to do, but it was bread and butter time, right? You have to have it, otherwise you're done. You have to go home. So I think over the period of this time, digital payments have truly found and their standing and have come into their own in India for sure. And as Kayzad so beautifully put it, it's been a game changer, because you walk outside, your propensity to pay with cash has gone down significantly, because you're in general very suspicious of any experience that requires you to touch something. So if you want to touch your own phone and scan it and pay something, that's the best experience that you have. So QR codes have really taken off in India. I would argue that they were already pretty popular, but now it's the daily vernacular that every Indian knows about. And you just ask whoever is selling you something, if they say they accept cash, you say, don't you have a way for me to do electronic payments, right? So that's something that's become mainstream. And that wouldn't have happened at such a pace if it hadn't been for the pandemic. It would have happened eventually, but the testament to what's happened the last 18 months is that we're all doing this. The second thing that has been an interesting one for us to look at is what happens from here, right? How secular are these trends? So what if the pandemic had persisted only for a short period of time, maybe the ingrained bias that human beings have towards cash, which has been built up over several millennia, would have come back and we would have gone back to status quo. But it's been such an extended period now, and the convenience has kind of soaked into all of our psyche, that I don't see any of us going back to pulling a wad of notes from our pockets to pay for anything anymore. It's always going to be the default behavior is going to be, can I pay using my phone? And that's brilliant for a company like PayPal. It's awesome. So for us as a company, Rakesh, what we've done is we've pivoted heavily towards one of the elements, obviously, that Kayzad mentioned, which is personalization, very huge part of the story for us. We are a beast in terms of the kind of data growth that we see on a daily basis on our systems across our platforms, you're talking about more than 400 petabytes of information across the 20 odd years that we've been in business. All of that is brought to bear because any personalized experience that relies on AI and ML, the food for this beast is, you're feeding it with data, and this volume of data helps us personalize a variety of different aspects across the financial services spectrum. And the stated mission of PayPal is to democratize access to financial services, and for that, across the spectrum in terms of whether needs like banking or credit, or even further down the line investing and insurance and all of those are all definitely within the ambit now, because the digitization of the overall banking experience and the financial services experience has definitely taken root. So I would say that from a technology perspective, for us, it's been all about accelerating our move to the cloud so that the elasticity in terms of our consumption can keep pace with the elasticity in terms of demand that we are seeing. And the elasticity usually refers to going up and down, but right now we're only seeing going up. And to be able to cope with that kind of acceleration is definitely, we need to be a cloud native company. We've always been focused on an internal cloud, but now moving more into the public cloud, keeping aspects like security, fraud prevention, risk mitigation. Those are secret sauces. They are the grimy details that actually make the magic happen on top, right? How do you run a business with $1 trillion in TPV when practically any bad actor in the system is constantly trying to skim something off the top? That only happens because you're able to bring the sheer weight of your technology prowess to every single problem that you have. So that's in a nutshell what we are focusing on: bringing hyper personalized experiences, using our AI and ML to abate fraud, keep things really secure. And data is sacrosanct. We never say share our customer data with anybody, and the only reason we use it is to better their experience on our own platforms.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Guru. I think I want to pick up on one of those themes that you mentioned to really explain to the audience how this is a secular trend, and there are massive tailwinds from a supply side as well, given the kind of tech investments that you're doing. And let me pick up on the theme of data engineering, data science, and application of AI, ML in the entire customer lifecycle, from acquisition to engagement to cross-sell, upsell, retention, right? In that perspective, can you maybe talk a little bit about the future of hyper-personalization and how is this likely to evolve in BFSI, but specifically in digital payments, given that now as payment players, now you do need to think about other sort of verticals within BFSI to maximize the full potential of the customer?
Sure. And let me maybe bring it down to a ground level by talking about, in a human context, in general, what do humans enjoy the most? Whether you go to a restaurant or you go to a grocery store or any kind of retail experience, the most memorable ones for us as humans are when we are made to feel special, right? Where maybe the wait staff in that restaurant was particularly attentive. Maybe they remembered you from the last time that you came and asked you about either your family or, sir, would you like the same tomato soup that you had the last time? Or you go into a grocery store, the person recognizes you, smiles and says automatically, I know every time you come in here, you buy, this particular bar of chocolate or whatever, right? There is a certain aha moment there. There's a certain magic in the experience where that bespokeness that personalization brings actually leaves you feeling good about that moment. It lets you savor that moment, and it also keeps you loyal to that experience because of that, what you receive, which is personalization. So I think as human beings, we are attuned towards expecting personalization, and we use it as a proxy for us feeling special and being made to feel important, which is why personalization is important. Now, you translate it to a problem where you have 400 million customers in the case of PayPal, but there are companies with even more customers. You can't really do that with human beings, looking at every single element of this customer's life cycle and saying, okay, this is what is going to make Guru super happy to engage with us. You have to be able to rely on the power of data and data science and machine intelligence to be able to mimic this aspect of personalized human behavior towards one another from the platform towards the person interacting on the platform. So in this realm, if you look at suboptimal experiences that all of us have probably undergone at some point or the other, right? I'll take a random example. I keep getting these junk phone calls, uh, and Kayzad, probably one of your competitors in the space. And to be fair, right, I've never received a junk phone call from your company, but one of your competitors seems to constantly be under the misapprehension that I'm in dire need of health insurance, and they keep calling me. And no matter how many times I tell them, look, I'm not in the market for this, and sometimes maybe not as politely, I still get those calls. You still get these junk SMSs. You still get the odd email here and there asking if you're interested in a plot of land in Pune when I live in Bangalore, right? You always scratch your head like, why is somebody doing this? This is a misuse, right? Basically, you're just taking a big fire hose and spraying it all over the place and assuming that good things will happen because you're just going to hit that many people, somebody's going to convert. Now, what if we were to turn this on its head and say, let's use the power of data to exactly figure out who we are going to target and why we are going to target? And what is the problem here? The problem is that you need to be able to deliver empathy at scale. That personalized conversation, that reach out, whether it's in a marketing context or it's in a customer support context or in a sales context, has to have enough empathy imbued into that experience that will make that human being on the other end. It's not a machine on the other end, it's a human being on the other end. That will make that person want to actually engage in the next step in that process. And the only way you can do it is to hyper personalize it. So across credit, across marketing, across customer acquisition, the mailers that we send out, the customer service proactive reaching out that we do to say, hey, you could potentially have a problem here. Do you want to take step 1, 2, and 3 and solve your own problem? It's empathetic and it's hugely operationally efficient for us, because the minute a customer solves their own problem, that is one less call to the call center that might cost $5 to $7 to service. Right. So it's always self-service is always better and leaves the customer feeling better and resolves the issue quicker as well. That's just one example, but across the board, assessing creditworthiness, marketing, figuring out who to target it to, figuring out how to upsell within the PayPal platform, because we've got this huge plethora of products that are fairly complex to navigate. Figuring out what those transition points are where a customer who's doing person-to-person payments might now start doing commercial payments to a business. And from there, maybe money transferred to somebody overseas. And then maybe at some point investing in crypto, which is a capability that we have added onto our platform. Figuring out at the right touch points to be able to market that to that person and make that an addition to their lives that is not seen as an intrusion, right? That's where the magic lies. And it's a lot of natural language processing, understanding, content AI, search optimization. There's like a ton of stuff going on underneath, which requires a data pipeline to be built with great care and attention. And it should be the feature stores that you build for these data pipelines in order to build the right models on top have to be shareable across the company so that everybody else who's doing it doesn't have to start all the way from the beginning. You can leverage work that's already done.
Thanks, Guru. And I quite like that phrase, empathy at scale. I'm going to use that in future client conversations. But so let me just turn this over to you, Kayzad. And you've often said that a resilient and sustainable technology ecosystem that enables organizations to quickly align their business models, processes, and stakeholder engagement is the way forward. What does this mean from an ecosystem perspective? What does this mean for large incumbents such as Bajaj Allianz?
Yeah, so a great question, and very in the ET on this as well, where I talked about the 4 I's of a resilient technology ecosystem. So I'll quickly run through them. The first, of course, is as Guru mentioned, infrastructure, and with the customers moving to digital and your physical infrastructure typically gathering dust because you were locked out, or customers don't want to visit you anymore. It is important that you migrate and scale to the cloud, because eventually what we have seen over the past 18 months is that we've seen 100% jump in our digital assets today. So close to about 70% of my customers today service themselves digitally. So Guru score 1 there in terms of building customer behaviors for perpetuity. The second, very clearly, what we've seen is that those people who actually migrated to the bandwagon, 60% of them are still using the same, channel of servicing. So obviously, we've seen a huge reduction in the walk-ins in our branches. We've seen a huge reduction in our call center calls, etc. And we've seen a huge upscale in terms of the use of WhatsApp platform, our secure portal, etc. for transactions which typically would require the customer to visit a branch or talk to somebody physically. So that's the infrastructure in terms of building capacity on tap to meet that customer demand of digital at scale. The second, very importantly, after infrastructure is integrations. Now, one of the good things about India is that we have so much going on in the API ecosystem that you have the ability to hook onto so many public databases to build context of a customer and build profiles of customers. So today you've got your credit bureaus, you've got the Aadhaar stack, you've got the banking ecosystem, you've got the Insurance Information Bureau, which is a subsidiary of our regulator. So you no longer need to really ask customers for paper anymore. So that's one great thing that's happened in terms of knowing your customer before the customer even opens his mouth or reveals anything about himself. And that's a huge wow. And I completely agree with Guru there that that's a huge wow in terms of the customer saying, how do you know all this about me without me even opening my mouth? And then figuring out that I last bought a policy from another insurer, or this is my total sum assured that insurance cover that I carry. So integration is extremely important to build a seamless flow for the customer. The third is interfaces, and you could write volumes about this. So building an interface which is simple, is easy to understand and navigate is the key for any service provider who's working with the customer in the long term. So unlike payments, which is one and done, we issue contracts for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and many a times the customer entrusts you with his legacy in terms of the money kind of puts in with us. So building those interfaces for him and his ecosystem, so his circle of influence in terms of accessing us and seeking resolution is so very important. And I really liked what Guru said again in terms of empathy at scale, because this is a very this is a tagline I use very often, that for a service provider it's not just enough to digitize the physical, it is very important to humanize the digital. And that being said, I can't agree more in the fact that wherever the service seeker gets stuck in a process with your digital asset, how you build a human connect at that point in time. And a simple example, okay, on our WhatsApp platform, I mean, this is another industry first, wherever for whatever reason there's a failed utterance, because eventually it's a bot that's working in the background. The first thing we did is, any failed utterance is where a human chat agent actually intervenes in the chat and says, hey, I understand that my bot is not able to answer you. I'm Kayzad and I'm going to answer the rest of your query. So you bring in the human element despite the fact that the person is stuck. The second, of course, is NLP, which Guru talked about as well. Their insurance is very lingo and jargon heavy. So how do I make that jargon? So for typically we have something a term called premium. Now, many people don't understand this term premium. Basically, they understand installment or EMI or Kish, so that type of. So how do you make your digital asset understand this and say, hey, if he's talking about EMI, he actually means a premium. Hey, if he's talking about portfolio value, he actually means fund value. So this is very important for us to understand. So interfaces, and finally, as an organization culture, intuitive innovation. This is extremely important, where we don't look at innovation as big bang stuff, that I'm going to create the next hydrogen bomb. I'm actually looking at small incremental steps which make the customer's life a lot easy. So how do I reduce that one piece of paper? How do I reduce the wet signature? How do I reduce the need to send the physical policy documents? How do I service that customer on a policy document which I emailed 10 years ago? So these are the type of things that we are looking at in terms of creating a resilient tech and customer experience ecosystem. So it's infrastructure, integrations, interfaces, and intuitive innovation.
Thanks, Kayzad. And that's a great place to leave this conversation. I think we can talk on and on about the importance of digital experience in redefining customer experience. But let me just recap maybe the 4 or 5 takeaways and then pass over to Ivan. For me, one clear takeaway is hyper-personalization is going to be the future, and that's going to be your way and means to deliver empathy at scale. Second, digital financial services is the best and only way to democratize financial services penetration in this country, and that's going to be a huge, huge focus. Third, an important point that you said, we all have to adapt to remote working and hybrid working models, and that's here to stay post-COVID as well. And fourth, the point that both of you made on infrastructure and the ability to invest in and importance of investing in scalable infrastructure, and therefore the move to cloud is going to be important. And lastly, being open from a tech stack perspective, being able to build those integrations with the publicly available assets that are already being built in this country to then therefore deliver a contextual, personalized experience to the customer is going to be extremely key. Thank you so much for your valuable insights, Kayzad and Guru. We'll keep this conversation going, but for now, back to you, Ivan.
Thanks, Rakesh. That was really a mind-blowing 30 minutes that we just witnessed. A great insights on how digital strategies need to be redefined to deliver that unmatched customer experience that everybody is looking for. Thank you for your time, Guru and Kayzad, and thank you for those cutting-edge insights. And thank you, Rakesh, for those pointed questions that elicited those responses. Thank you for doing a wonderful job of moderating this trialogue. Guru, Kayzad, Rakesh, we wish you and your respective organizations the very best going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan.
Do stay tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back on the other side in a few minutes from now with the second panel discussion of the day, which will focus on cybersecurity.